All right, happy holidays, Whatnot gang. If this is your first time joining us on Whatnot Sellers, hi, I'm Casey. You guys usually see Kenny here, but I am Kenny's coworker. I'm also the face behind our meetups program, which we talk about a lot on this account. I'll plug that again today. We announced that last week for this group. But our community team, just in general, runs a lot of different programs that help educate sellers across the platform. We do streams here. We're actually running a new seller school program tonight. We work with sellers on the platform to share information. And then something new that happened this year was Whatnot meetups. So very excited to share, and Kenny, if you can pin the hub, we just recently launched a meetups hub where folks can apply to host a meetup and also search for local meetups in their area. So hopefully we'll get a lot of these throughout the country very soon, expanding into international markets next year. But yeah, if you want to just check it out, meetups.whatnot.com. You would work with me directly and we could help bring your event to life. So very excited to see this take off in the new year. And shout out to Moms and Crumbs, who's having a meetup in California this week. All right, so I've done my little intro for the community team. We're doing something a bit different today. We just dropped our 2026 trend report, and I've got Liz from our communications team above me here to break down what we found out and, more importantly, what it means for your business heading into this new year. We're also going to use the second half of this show to talk about goal setting. So it's two things that we're covering today. But with that, Liz, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Liz. I work on the communications team at Whatnot. I've been here for a little over 3.5 years. Just a quick overview of what the communications team is here. We work to help you understand what's happening at Whatnot, why it matters, how it affects your business. We manage all communication, or most communication, to sellers, buyers, and also the broader public to really educate them about live shopping and show how powerful this format is for building stronger customer relationships and growing a business. I'm super stoked to be here talking about trends today. This is one of my favorite things that we do. So there's always some really cool, interesting insights. I'm not sure if anyone read last year's report, but that's definitely worth a read as well. But definitely check out this year's. We have it on our blog.teamwhatnot.com.
Yeah, Liz became quite the data scientist with getting this out. So it's really chock full of amazing insights that we'll get a bit into. So let's start at the top, Liz. What exactly is the trend report and why do we put this together each year?
Yeah, so the trend report is basically a deep dive into what buyers are on Whatnot are searching for and purchasing. So we analyze hundreds of millions of transactions and search queries across every single category in the business. So sports cards, TCG, fashion, coins, plants, you name it. Like, we look at everything to try to see what's gaining momentum and where things are headed. So this is a look back at what's been happening over the past year and also a look forward to see what trends could be bubbling up in the next year. And for sellers, this is intel. It's really a chance to see what's resonating with buyers right now and get ahead of where demand is going in 2026.
Yeah, I love that. The more data for Whatnot sellers, the better. This time of year, a lot of folks look back on the year and we see a lot of trend reports that come out throughout different industries. I'm curious what makes our trend report at Whatnot different?
Yeah, you definitely see a lot of these, right? Every year I see more and more, tons of predictions and just recaps of what's been happening. I think what's really unique about Whatnot is that we see what's happening before it hits mainstream. The level of engagement that we have on this platform is unlike anywhere else. Our users are spending globally between 80 and 90 minutes a day on Whatnot. which is absolutely insane. So just to put that into context, like in the US, TikTok users are spending 52 minutes. Instagram is around 33 minutes a day. Whatnot is 80 to 90 minutes. And those are not just, you're not just passively scrolling. Our users are actively watching shows, they're chatting with sellers, they're buying. So we're not just tracking what people are talking about, we're tracking what people are searching for when they're ready to spend money. So that's really like a leading indicator into like seeing what's happening before other people do. Labubu is my favorite example of this. Like our toy sellers were seeing the Labubu demand spike months before it became a mainstream phenomenon. And by the time like it was showing up in trend pieces and like celebrities were talking about it, our sellers had already been riding that wave. So that's really like the advantage of this data for sellers is it shows you where demand is really heading and not only where it's already been. So, you know, just the real-time engagement around live shopping just is really unique in how it signals what's coming next.
Yeah, I love that and super, super helpful for sellers, especially moving into this new year. If you're just joining us, we're from the Whatnot team here to talk about our annual trend report. We have it linked in the tagged comment below in the chat. Thank you, Kenny, who's modding for us today. We're talking all about Whatnot trends, and then we're going to end this conversation today with how to prepare and goal set for the new year. So really happy to have y'all here. All right, let's get into trends. What were some of the biggest movers that sellers should pay attention to?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think, again, this year, women's sports is really a standout story. WNBA cards are growing 3 times faster than NBA cards. We saw almost 1,700% growth. And this isn't just like a flash in the pan moment. We saw this insane growth last year, and seeing it again this year just shows that it's this women's sports is really becoming like a true like category for collectors to continue investing in. I mean, for instance, a Caitlin Clark 1 of 1 autographed rookie was pulled on Whatnot earlier this year and then sold at auction for $660,000. And that's like real market validation that she broke records. That was the highest, you know, WNBA card ever sold in terms of pricing. But the thing is that it's not just Caitlin Clark. Like, yes, we hear a lot about Caitlin Clark, but it's Paige Buckers, it's Cameron Brink, Aaliyah Boston, Aja Wilson. All of these players posted triple-digit growth, so we're seeing a lot of depth across the roster now. But what's really been interesting to see is that this is going beyond just cards. So WNBA signed items and jerseys are also growing. If you're in sports collectibles, like next year is really the time to build out your women's sports inventory, not just cards, but memorabilia and wearables too.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how much the app is diversifying over time. Like when I joined almost 4 years ago now, like sports cards were the biggest thing, and now there's so many different aspects of sports that buyers and enthusiasts can get into. So it's really exciting to see.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much like diversification of categories, and like another really fascinating thing that we've seen is the share of female or women users on Whatnot. So that's like the percentage of women users has doubled over the past year. Because of like how fast like fashion and beauty and like all these other categories have been growing. So that's been really awesome to see.
Yeah, super, super exciting. All right, we have some more insights across categories as well, so we'll shift gears a bit. You just mentioned fashion, so fashion has had some interesting moves this year. What specifically should fashion sellers know that are in the chat today?
Yeah, so I am so excited for this one because I love a monochromatic, simple look, don't get me wrong, but the aesthetic is shifting so hard right now. Maximalism is back, particularly like Western, boho, both of these grew around 1,000%. Buyers are looking more for like textured, expressive clothing with just a little bit more like personality and especially craftsmanship, like really good materials like crochet, knit. But I think like another really, really interesting thing that we're seeing is plus size is also growing like insanely. So we've seen like major brands and retailers are pulling back on extended sizing. They're not offering as many size options to shoppers. And we're seeing that sellers here are really working to fill that gap. So extended sizing jumped 600% for women's, and it's not just women's fashion. Men's big and tall grew 900%. So really, really massive gains and really cool to see how like our sellers are really filling this gap that traditional retail created, and buyers are responding to that.
Yeah, it makes me really proud to work at a company that is like has this category that is so inclusive of all different body types. And I'm really excited to see how that grows in the new year as well.
Yeah,
Um,
same.
so obviously sports and fashion are huge on Whatnot, but we have categories all across the board, including our sellers that are in the chat today. So what about categories outside of cards, specifically in fashion? Were there any surprises in this report?
Yes. So coins and precious metals had a massive year as they did last year too. But what's really interesting within like numismatics is like how people are buying and what they're buying. We're seeing some new trends bubble up. So gold back, I don't know if we have any coin sellers and numismatic sellers in the chats, but gold backs are basically physical notes embedded with like real fractional pieces of gold. And those grew over 500%. Ancient coins are up too. Like, so people aren't just stacking bullion. They're really looking for like historical narratives and actual spendable formats. And I think a lot of this is driven by, I mean, people just wanting to find meaning in what they buy, but also the economy as well. And the other real breakout story of the year is toys. Toys had a huge story. We all know like Labubu is massive. It's been growing 130% month over month. So every single month, that's the level of growth that we're seeing in sales. And nostalgia is really a main driver in what we're seeing across toys heading into the new year. So like millennial and to an extent Gen Z favorites like Calico Critters, Lalaloopsy, Littlest Pet Shop, and even I'm so especially excited for this. Beanie Babies are
Yeah.
posting like triple or quadruple digit growth. So folks, millennials like myself especially, are really reconnecting with childhood, and that's creating like a whole other collectibles wave. I have like 600 Beanie Babies literally in my house right now.
This is your
So
time.
this is my time. I've been holding on to these since like 1998, and I don't know if I'll ever get rid of them, but I'm excited to see like people discover something that I loved so much when I was a kid.
Yeah, totally. And it really speaks to trends being cyclical. Like things always come back.
They
Um,
really do. They really do. It's always that like
yeah,
the 20-year circle back, you know?
yeah,
And we've been seeing that, right? With like the Y2K aesthetic in fashion.
totally.
And it's interesting to now see that move into other categories like toys.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to the millennials in the chat. We're all healing our inner child together with all of these toys that we can now collect on Whatnot. All right, I'm also going to touch on beauty. We were talking about beauty right before we started this stream. Fun fact, we've both had experience in the makeup artist space, which is very fun. But beauty is blowing up on Whatnot. What is driving this growth specifically?
Yes, beauty is blowing up. So, out of all of the categories that we published in the report, beauty has actually grown the most on Whatnot. Like, overall, sales have grown 600% in beauty since last year, which is incredible. I think what we're seeing is that similar to fashion, the clean girl aesthetic is out.
Yeah.
2026 beauty is all about super bold, expressive colors and more like DIY driven. So we're seeing like the OG makeup palettes come back, like makeup palettes with tons of different colors and like eyeshadow options. We're also seeing things like press on nails have been growing 3,000% growth. So you can get custom designer sets of press on nails for like 10 to 30 bucks on Whatnot, which, depending on where you live in the country, that's really like remarkably less than what you would pay for a salon visit. And we're also seeing things like glitter and like red lipstick and also some really cool throwback fragrances making a comeback. So Bath and Body Works is our number one fastest growing brand of like fragrance, which is incredible. So we're seeing a lot of like gourmand specifically, like vanilla and cherry. And then I think that this is no surprise, but K-beauty has exploded. Buyers are really prioritizing ingredient driven skincare over brands. So what they're searching for is more like retinol or salicylic acid more so than specific brands. So just thinking about how you create those listings, just with that in mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have access to inventory, like there is tons of demand there.
Yeah, really interesting information too of exactly how to market these products as well, of what really people are looking for. So just goes to show you should always think creatively of how to market your products on Whatnot and see what's trending, which this trend
Yeah.
report shout out can definitely help.
Yeah.
One thing that was new in this year's trend report was city level data. What's the story there?
Yeah, this was so fun. So when we looked at all of these different categories, we then tried to zero in on like, okay, which cities are really driving this change across these categories? And we found five cities that really stood out. And, if you're selling in one of these spaces, this tells you where a lot of your buyers may be coming from and where demand is strongest. So Atlanta, number one, bar none for WNBA growth, 7,000% growth in WNBA. They really led across like all women's basketball and memorabilia. Chicago, number one for precious metals, especially things like platinum. So platinum was up 15,000%, which is crazy because Chicago is a ground zero historically, like a commodities trading city. So that was a really interesting insight. And then Dallas became the plus size fashion capital. So 600% growth, more than double of any other major city. So there's a lot of demand there. And Miami, number one for Labubu, like by far, adjusted for per capita. So that Labubu made up 12% of the city's overall toy market, which is more than both Funko and Disney combined, which is really incredible. And then for beauty, Phoenix really led the K-beauty adoption. So that's, it was like 3,000% growth there for K-beauty. So it's interesting to see how like climate, right, could really influence purchases. So being in like a dry desert climate, these folks are disproportionately looking at Korean beauty skincare, which was really interesting to see.
Yeah, and what's interesting, obviously, this is really helpful and could be helpful for local pickup, depending on where you're based in the country or internationally. But this could also be really helpful for sourcing. Marketing can happen on Whatnot, it can happen off of Whatnot. So, finding events or other suppliers in these areas could be a really great way to kind of dig into that specific market.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a lot of juicy data here for sellers to use, but folks could probably get overwhelmed at everything that we supplied. So how should sellers that are tuning in today actually use this data?
Yeah, so a few ways. First, use it as a sourcing guide. If you see that plus size fashion is surging, that's a signal to start looking at your inventory mix. If ancient coins are having a moment or like platinum is booming, maybe it's time to explore that category. Second, use it for your show programming. If you know nostalgia toys are hot, maybe that's your flagship show. Or if you know buyers are searching for Caitlin Clark or Aja Wilson, like mention that in your title and your description when you have their cards. And third, you can use it to kind of like validate what you're already seeing. Like a lot of you are already in these categories and feeling this momentum, and this report just confirms a lot of that and gives you those numbers to really back up your gut and make you feel really confident to like lean into what you've already been leaning into.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
definitely, I will say, like, listings, 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 you guys. Like, we have so many new buyers joining Whatnot who are new to live stream shopping. The first thing that they're doing is they're jumping on search and they're looking at listings, and that's what's then pulling them into these shows. So, good listings with like quality attributes, like really like take advantage of those search terms that you're seeing in this report.
Yeah, totally. Anything that you can do to set your business apart and make you a super trustworthy seller will really help you out in the long run.
Yeah.
All right, so lots of good data. There were some categories that weren't mentioned in this report as well. Should sellers from these categories be worried?
Not at all. I mean, this thing could have been 1,000 pages, let me tell you. Like, there were a lot of really cool things that we saw. The trends that we're highlighting are not necessarily the biggest movers, and they're not the only categories that are doing well. Whatnot has an incredible like long tail of categories where sellers are thriving, but I think the broad takeaway to remember is that storytelling and just being your authentic self really matter. Whether you're selling sneakers or antiques or homemade goods, like buyers are coming because they want that connection. They want that story behind the product. They want that context while they're shopping and to feel like connected, right, with the community. And that's universal across all categories.
Yeah, totally. We like to say internally Whatnot is shoppertainment. So people are not only coming for your products, but they're coming for the experience that you provide. So just thinking of ways that you can let your personality shine through or just make something that's really authentic to your brand is absolutely going to help you in the long run on Whatnot. So I love that. All right, lots here before we pivot to goal setting. But the last question that I have for you, looking at all of this data, and I think you also touched on this a little bit, but what's the headline for 2026?
I mean, let's see. I guess like if you're paying attention to what's moving on Whatnot, you're already ahead of the curve. Like Labubu was blowing up here months before it hit mainstream. WNBA cards were surging before the media deal headlines. That's really the advantage of selling on a platform where buyers are this engaged, spending those 80 to 90 minutes a day on the platform. So you get to see what's rising before everyone else. And I mean, the other big takeaway that I'd love for folks to know is that buyers aren't just staying in one lane. So the same person collecting WNBA cards might also be buying press-on nails or ancient coins. So if you can meet them across multiple interests, you're building a stronger business. And, like I mentioned, storytelling still wins. The sellers who are thriving aren't just listing products. They're sharing that context, the history, the why something matters. They're as enthusiastic as their buyers about what they're selling. And I think that's what live shopping enables, and that's what really keeps buyers coming back.
Yeah. I mean, we all know that Whatnot really thrives on the community piece. I think some of the most successful sellers that I know of on the platform that have a really good reputation are very good at creating connections across categories. So not only thinking about what your buyers are doing, but thinking about, okay, how can your collaborations or folks that you network with also aid in those relationships? So lots of good stuff there. If you haven't checked it out already, Kenny, please link to the trend report. You can find it on Whatnot's blog. But Liz, thank you so much for all of this data. I learned a ton, and I really hope Yeah, and I really hope sellers will continue to use this as they start planning for the new year.
Same,
Yeah.
same.
Um, so now we're gonna flip the script, which is something we don't usually do on this account. But Liz is actually going to interview me now about goal setting, heading into the new year, how to specifically take insights like these and then actually turn them into a plan for 2026. So Liz, take it away.
Yes. Well, first, thank you guys so much for having me. That was really fun talking about trends. I love it. Really excited to share all those insights with you. And so now let's shift into how sellers can get themselves set up for success with goal setting for next year. I know we're all thinking about our resolutions, goal setting. You may be just starting out. You may have a whole team where you're like actually creating annual goals and plans. So really excited to chat about this one. So I guess to kick things off, when you think about seller goal setting, Casey, for 2026, what are the things that should be top of mind for sellers?
Yeah, quickly before I answer this question, I know we're giving you a lot of information today, so excited to share that this recording will be available on YouTube likely tomorrow, end of day. So if you can't tune into the entire stream today, absolutely no worries. You can go and watch the recording. Just look up Whatnot on YouTube, and you'll be able to find our recordings from Whatnot Sellers there. But yes, goal setting. I have a lot of thoughts here. Going into the new year, we can always come in with a lot of energy, but I think it's really important to be specific and be particular of what we focus in on. And starting early can also really help us not burn out. So here are some of my headlines. The biggest thing, and we mentioned this a ton on this account and in a lot of our education programming, you likely hear it from other top sellers, is consistency. Consistency beats intensity almost in every single category. We also want to make sure that we're picking goals tied to inputs, so things you can directly control rather than only outputs, so something like revenue. A better example here is if you say, okay, I want to double my income next month or something like that. That's a little vague because it doesn't give you tangible things to work on to eventually get to that exact output. So by focusing on the things that you can control, like average order value, streaming hours, things like that, you can actually start working up to those goals that you want to set for yourself. Another thing here, keep goals simple. Yeah, like Sassy just said, small attainable goals. Complex systems fail under stress, so the more simple and understandable that you can make it for yourself and your team, the more successful that they will be. Run small experiments and iterate instead of committing to huge, rigid plans. We live in a very dynamic market. There are things that are changing on Whatnot and within the buyer's community all the time. So it's really important for us to be flexible. Something that we like to say in the corporate world is crawl, walk, run. So using that frame of mind and using these tests to test things out slowly and kind of build larger systems over time will really make sure that you're investing your time in the right things. And then last thing I want to mention for this, there's always a trap when it comes to goal setting. I know sometimes in the past I have gotten way too excited. My vision board is huge and I set like 20 goals for myself. Well, if you end up setting too many goals, it really just spreads you way too thin, and that leads to the eventual abandonment of your goals. Something that we actually do internally at Whatnot is that every employee should only have like 2 to 3 priorities that they're really focused on at a time. And I really recommend kind of the same thing to our Whatnot business owners to just make sure that you're laser focused on what's really working well for your business and it's actually realistic for you to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you were going through all of this, I was just thinking in my head, like this is exactly how our team here at Whatnot approaches like how we set our goals. And it truly is just staying laser focused on those top 2 to 3 things. Because if you're doing too much, you're going to be a mile wide and an inch deep, and may not achieve what you're looking for because you're not able to like truly go deep on the things that you need in order to succeed. So what's a good framing to use when setting a goal, Casey, and how would that apply specifically to sellers on Whatnot?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I briefly touched on this before, but you don't want to set goals based on hopes. You want to really focus on controllable behaviors. So a goal based on a hope could be I want to double my revenue, like I shared before. But an actual controllable behavior that could lead to that outcome would be I will stream 3 times weekly. So just really making sure that it's specific and focusing on your direct behaviors can then lead to that outcome of, let's say, double revenue. A good goal framework that actually helps you achieve this would be 3 things. And feel free to jot this down or revisit this recording later. The first one would be what outcome do I want? Second one would be what behaviors actually drive that outcome? And then third, how will I measure progress weekly? And I'll touch a bit on why weekly progress tracking is so important. But there's a lot of things that sellers can frame this around. You can frame around revenue, consistency, audience growth, or content. But really choosing one tied to your next biggest unlock for your business is going to help you get to that next phase. So an example I can share here, if viewership is low, for example, the goal shouldn't be increase revenue. It should be grow audience X%, which can then hopefully lead to more revenue in the future for you. So to kind of sum it up, yes, SMART goals are great, but you want to do practical goal setting would be actually measuring weekly. And then also make sure that it's motivating to you too. So not only do you want to set concrete goals for yourself, but you want to make sure that you're motivated by them and it connects to the larger vision of your business. And that will also help you not burn out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a big thing that we always talk about is consistency and that being the real differentiator of success on Whatnot. Why is consistency so important and key for goal setting?
Yeah, consistency truly is the number one thing that we bring up with our sellers that is, I think, the most important thing to think about when really taking your Whatnot business seriously. And if you're a seller that agrees with that, feel free to let me know in the chat. I think it resonates with a lot of folks here. Um, Consistency overall trains the algorithm and also trains your audience. Both specifically rely on predictability. So it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Sellers who stream reliably build habits in their buyers. So, like, think about it with TV programming growing up. We would all know that, like, American Idol comes out on Monday nights, and we'd organize our week around that specific program. Well, it turns out that Whatnot buyers are very, very similar, that they will plan their social calendar around their favorite streamers. So the more that you can be reliable in knowing, okay, every single Friday, my username is Casey's Clay. Casey's Clay is streaming, selling earrings. The more likely I'll start having repeat viewers and repeat buyers coming into my stream. Another thing with consistency is that big swings are exciting, but they're unsustainable. Momentum is really built by repetition. So it's not always the sexy part of the business, but making sure that you are rigid and keeping up the momentum of your habits is really going to make sure that your Whatnot business thrives in the long run. Those big swings are super helpful and they're great for big marketing moments, but it's those little steps that are really going to get you far. The other thing too is that consistency creates more data. We're talking a lot about data in today's stream, and the more data that we have, the faster that we can learn and the more quickly that we can actually iterate on our business. So the more that you go live, let's say 3 months in a row, every single Friday night, you're going to have a lot of data to work with of what's resonating with your buyers, what kind of formats really work well for your shows and things like that. And also, I know that I can often get burnt out by the amount of things that I have to think about and do on a weekly basis, the amount of like code switching that folks can do. And I'm sure that Whatnot sellers feel the same of 1 minute you're streaming, the next you're shipping, the next you're sourcing. It's a lot on your mental load. So the more that you can just set a habit and schedule for yourself consistency wise leads to fewer decisions and more execution on your part.
Absolutely. The whole thing about mental load resonates so much, right?
Yeah.
Like even in my I mean, not only for work, but even in my personal life. Like I eat mostly the same things every day, and it brings
Totally.
me comfort because it does relieve that mental load.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I know personal accountability is also something we talk about when setting goals. Like, what are some simple systems or habits that sellers can use to really hold themselves accountable without feeling too overwhelmed?
Totally. I've had to learn this the hard way, I think, over the years that unless I like write something down or have an external factor keeping me accountable, it's very hard for me to stay consistent with my goals. And there's a lot of ways that you can help yourself in making sure that you achieve those goals if it's easy for you to, let's say, like fall off the bandwagon. So there's like some lightweight systems that could be put into play here that are relatively easy to set up. So a weekly checklist is awesome. I actually use this in my own work week. I have a physical checklist, so I'm actually sitting down, writing, and focusing on it. It doesn't get lost on my computer. And it's honestly very satisfying when I can like cross things off and I really know that I'm getting things done regardless of how I'm feeling. A simple habit tracker is great. There are apps that can help you with this, or if there's a notebook or any other system that you want, just something that can just give you a reminder each day of something that you want to achieve. Um, Something else that could be creative would be a stream scorecard, especially if you have a team. This could help with consistency in the brand overall. An example that you could use for a stream scorecard is after you stream, there could be three metrics that you look at. So, like frequency, viewers, revenue. And really, you can just tailor that scorecard to your business. Um, Tying accountability to routines, not willpower. So scheduling streams at the same times each week and just showing up no matter what. Something that I feel like I can relate to in my own life. I hate getting out of bed in the morning, going to the gym. But I really tied myself to this idea of I'm staying accountable to my routine, not my willpower, because I'm always going to want to sleep in late. I'm always going to want to, push things off and maybe relax on my couch rather than streaming. But the more that you just stay really rigid with your schedule, the more that it's just going to become habitual for you and easier for you to continue moving forward. Two more things. Use social proof or community, so sharing your goals with a friend or seller groups. Maybe find your best friend on Whatnot or a seller that you really admire and share your goals. Have someone that can check in with you directly. And also, micro commitments are really great because it's just easier things to check off your to-do list and just keep you motivated that you're getting things done. So, for example, you can say, show up for 60 minutes twice this week. Easy things to check off your list, and you can just keep setting goals from there.
Yeah. And I find for myself, like when I break things down into more like tangible, achievable goals, that like feeling of checking something off too also just helps build your like internal momentum and confidence, right? Like you feel yourself making movement and progress when you're breaking things down into a lightweight system versus like this huge nebulous like goal.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. And something that we've like that we've seen here and really guides even just how Whatnot as a whole and like our employees operate is that research has consistently shown that simpler goals are more achievable and only attacking like 2 to 3 things at a time is often the sweet spot. But how can sellers like identify which small number of priorities will actually move the needle for them on Whatnot?
Yeah, and I'll go through this quickly because I know we're running out of time and I want to make sure we have time for questions. But a good question to ask yourself would be if I only improved 2 to 3 things in my business this year, which would create the biggest lift? So, really thinking about the priorities for your business and where you want to go, kind of backpedaling from there and figuring out what are the inputs that are going to get me there will really help you out. Just in general, I think good priorities for business owners typically relate to money, audience, or efficiency. And don't pick goals just because they sound good. Pick ones really tied to bottlenecks in your data. And we'll talk a bit about like where to find good data for your business too.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about data. This is my favorite subject. So, data reflection, iteration, and setting goals, how should sellers be using analytics, both when thinking about what goals they want to achieve next year and also just tracking their progress?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I know data can sometimes be scary for folks. Like, I'm not inherently a good numbers person, but I've had to really learn to use data over time to help me out with my job or also my business on Whatnot. So, shout out to also like AI tools out there. ChatGPT could be a really good tool in like deciphering your data and helping you figure out what to focus on. But overall, data should inform your goals and validate your progress, but not dictate necessarily every decision. We're human at the end of the day, but it gives us a lot of tools to make those decisions. Every seller here has their seller hub and Whatnot. And Seller Hub, specifically under analytics, is a really great place to start since it lets sellers filter, compare, and visualize trends from their selling history across live streams, orders, revenue, and audience behavior. So there's a lot of good stuff in there that you can use. Looking at data for inputs versus outputs. So data for goal creation is really finding opportunities and bottlenecks, and data for goal tracking really helps you validate your behaviors and ensure behaviors are actually driving good results. And then making sure you're matching the right metric to your goals. So again, this is where friends or even ChatGPT could help you really zone in on what's important for getting to your outcomes. Say it's audience growth, it could look at views, follows, conversion rate. Revenue can look at average order price, order volume, or retention could also even look at repeat buyers or defect rate. So yeah, data is an amazing tool, and I highly recommend that everyone become as data literate as possible as business owners.
Absolutely. And two more quick questions before we get into questions from the chat. So when we think about data, like I know that sometimes like you can see like there will be a data point that really trips you up, something that happens in a single day, for instance, or a single show. What would you say about like the value of tracking trends over time rather than reacting to a single data point and then pivoting, off of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure a lot of sellers can resonate with this experience that you decide to try a new format on Whatnot and it completely fails and doesn't go the way that you hoped it would be. And it's so easy to quickly jump to, all right, that's not for me. I'm never doing that again. Well, Whatnot is changing every day. There's always new buyers coming to the platform. So unless you do that consistently and not focus on a single day spike or dips, you won't actually see what's sticking and what's working for your audience over time. And what's interesting about trends is that it really helps reveal when your inputs, so things that you're directly contributing to, are compounding for your business. So let's actually put this into practice. So say a seller decides I will stream every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday at 7 p.m. That's the direct input. For 1 to 2 streams, the numbers might be completely random. So one night is dead, the other night is great, one night is mixed. Those single points, zeroing in on a single show, don't necessarily tell you something helpful for achieving your goals. But if you look at the trend for over 4 to 6 weeks, you can see maybe your average viewers start creeping up, repeat buyers increase, conversion rate stabilizes, and revenue becomes less volatile. So it just helps give you compounding data over time to really validate what's working for your business.
Awesome. Those are really, really helpful tips. And so finally, before we jump into chat cues, if you were to suggest one thing to sellers tuning in today as it relates to goal setting for next year, what would it be?
Build a business by design, not by hope. We've talked a lot about intentionality and using data points and setting concrete goals today. So really just making sure that you have a design and a plan for your business. We're not just going to get lucky on Whatnot or in any other aspect of our life. We want to make sure that we show up intentionally and we're spending our time wisely. So yeah, build a business by design, not by hope.
I love that. That's a great quote. Awesome. Thank you so much, Casey. That was really, really insightful. Really appreciate you sharing so many details there as it relates to successful goal setting.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I think we have some time to jump into the chat. Casey, how do you want to break it down? I can
We can,
jump in.
yeah, take turns where folks seem comfortable.
Cool.
I think you are the expert on
Great.
Beanie Babies, so I'll let you take this
Yes,
one.
yes. Beanies, JV, Rashi, what's up? Are Beanie Babies really making a comeback? Yes, they're making a comeback. I think I mentioned it was, let's see, 590% growth. But guess what? It's not only Beanie Babies. We also, I didn't even mention these, but Furby and Care Bears are also
Yeah.
creeping up there too. So that's really cool to see. So, I mean, 2026, like we'll see what happens for sure, but definitely seeing a meaningful spike there in both searches and purchases.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes in the new year. And just a reminder for folks, we went through a lot of stuff today, but this will be available on YouTube either tomorrow or Friday, so you can revisit this information in the future. All right, CMD Detailing Products asks, how do I pick the right area? Oh, wait, sorry, I skipped one. Thrifted Trove asks, can you guys talk about goals to set to become a premier shop? Very good question. And again, it's thinking about, okay, becoming premier shop is the output. We want to focus on the inputs of what's going to get us there. It can really depend on the seller and what maybe the bottlenecks are in your business, but general things that you can focus on would be your streaming hours, the amount of orders that you're pushing per hour. Other things you can think about are what needs to be true so I actually can stream more and sell more. Do you need to hire someone? Do you need to find new suppliers? Do you need to be supplying at larger amounts or anything like that? So again, just really narrowing in on what the inputs could be that could then lead to that output would be a good start. Liz, you want to take the next one?
Cool. How do I pick the right area to sell or category? This is a fantastic question. I think that given the nature of live shopping and that you're there essentially putting on a show, selling whatever you are interested in, whatever you like, most of our most successful sellers, they start out selling what they have collected or what they enjoy purchasing themselves. So I would say figure out what you're interested in and build a business around your passion. I think that is like the main like value of live shopping and building a business on Whatnot is that you're able to do that.
Yeah, it actually is very similar. We get a lot of questions of like, what's the best day of the week or time to stream? And our answer is often the time or day of the week that works best for you. Authenticity is really important on Whatnot. So the more passionate that you are, the more that that will translate to your audience for sure. That's a question, good question for you, Liz. NatGeo872 asks, do you just look at Whatnot data specifically for the 2026 trends?
We do. We look just at Whatnot data. So it's a combination of like searches and actual purchases over the year. We actually look at the past 2 years to see like what's showing like outsized growth compared to the year before. But we do put out another report called the State of Live Selling Report, and that one will be coming out soon. That one's really interesting because we survey just sellers broadly and sellers on Whatnot as well. So you get like different data points that aren't just unique to Whatnot, but just generally how folks are building businesses via live shopping.
Very nice. It's a Grail asks, what are key consistencies to help our personal algorithm? I'm going to answer this from a seller perspective, just because we're focusing on sellers today. At least with like helping you get more discoverable on Whatnot, there's a lot of different things that you can be consistent with to help your business. So Liz mentioned quality listings. That's a huge one. The more consistent you are with quality listings, the more discoverable that you can be, especially for new buyers. being consistent with your stream hours, the more time that you're investing into the app, really just anything that can be consistent, like metrics tracking wise. So consistency in streaming hours, consistency in order volume, consistency in scheduling your shows in advance. All of those things can really help aid the algorithm and make your business more discoverable. Liz, do you want to take one?
Sure. Let's see. PSN Creations. Is it more vintage toys or all toys that are trending? So it's really all toys. We're seeing all toys are growing, like toys are growing massively. Yes, vintage toys are bubbling up as kind of like the next big thing, but Jellycat is huge. All of the different like variations of blind box also still growing strong. And I think that like any given toy is really an entry point into other toys. I think people are just like finding comfort in collecting these like really cute, awesome, adorable like items. So that's I think that the blind box has really helped kind of catapult toys overall.
All right, we have Gone Girl Goods. Does Whatnot offer reports features so we can see trends off on or off the trends off of the platform data? Yes, your seller hub is your best friend here. Definitely check out your analytics. It can tell you a larger story about what's working or what's not working for your Whatnot business. So if you look at your seller hub on Whatnot on desktop, you'll find a lot of good info there. All right, I think we got time for like one more question.
Let's see. We have one here. Do you think Y2K fashion will continue to grow? I think so. I think the data, every time we're looking at what's trending on Whatnot in fashion, Y2K is always one of the biggest categories that's trending. I think also, given the shift that we're seeing into maximalism for both fashion and beauty, Y2K, when I think Y2K, I think about maximalism, right? I think about like all of the different colors, the layers, layering different tank tops under your t-shirt and so forth. So I think that we'll continue to see Y2K going strong in the new year.
I personally love that. So that's great news.
Okay.
All right, that is what we have time for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. Big thank you to Liz for sharing the trend report with us. So much good data to check out there. Kenny, if you could pin the trend report one more time, if you haven't checked it out already, make sure to go read it after this. Another thing I want to plug too is our Meetups hub. Very excited to see how this grows in the new year, but our hub is live, meetups.whatnot.com. Our Whatnot sellers viewers are actually the first to hear about this hub. We're not going live with this or not spreading the news wide about this until the new year. So you have exclusive info right here. Check out meetups.whatnot.com. You can look for meetups in your local area or also apply to host meetups. And yeah, if you've been tuning in several times throughout the year on Whatnot Sellers, or even today as your first day tuning in with us, thank you so much for being here, for learning with us. And we're really excited to keep this going in the new year and continue learning with you all. So again, thank you, Liz. Appreciate you. You are the best.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. Really appreciate you guys coming out to hear more about trends. This was incredible.
Yeah, we love our Whatnot community and really admired you all for taking the time. I know your time is valuable. So we do have someone that we're going to raid today, Nurse Sarah, who sells in pet supplies. So please share love. You don't necessarily have to buy anything, but just share love in the chat. It's what we do best. And let's just show her the magic of Whatnot raids. So again, happy holidays, everyone. Loved hanging out with you all this year, and we'll see you in the new year.